So we have General V.S. Budhwar, Viru Budhwar, as he is known to all his friends. And he was commanding the all-important 3 Infantry Division during the Kargil War exactly a quarter of a century ago. Um, General, welcome to Fauji Days. This interview, I believe this is the first one you're giving after the war,
Thank
and
you.
it's a pleasure to be with you again after 25 years. We've all got white hair now instead of black, and
Thank you.
they've changed a bit, but I must say you're looking good. So lovely to have you with us today, sir.
Thank you very much.
So right, sir, I'll pick it up from right at the beginning when you were uh, your sector was your headquarters were in Leh at that time, and I was fairly familiar with it because my dad also had commanded 70 Brigade when it was in Kiari, and then
I
of
know.
course the balloon went up in 1999. So there's been a huge time gap since then. It's almost 20. It is 25 years, and among a lot of veterans and among a lot of people, there is this overriding belief that 3 Division hasn't got the due that was actually should have got for its performance in the war. So let's start and cover some of those key issues which would be interesting to get your views on.
Sure.
Let's start with the give us your perspective right from the beginning as to where and how the intrusions were detected, were found, because there's been a lot of talk about intelligence failures and stuff like that. So exactly how did let's hear it from you because you're the person in the hot seat at that time, and how did things unfold so in the beginning?
Well, first of all, the intelligence failure that's been debated for a long time by various people. It has been commented upon by the Kargil Review Committee as well as General Malik in his book. And we were all surprised at the intrusion that took place. At that time, 4th to 6th of May, the DGMO was also visiting our sector, and there was no inkling that he gave that there was something to happen. It was only on 6th evening that I was informed by Commander 121 Brigade that there is some movement seen in the area of Batalik. And so I said, okay, I will come there in the morning and we will discuss it out and then we'll see what it is. So I reached there on 7th morning of May, and thereafter it unfolded. I fully realized that there was a major intrusion which is taking place because nobody can venture across the line of control just like that. And thereafter, we ordered patrols. We took immediate action in more uh, helicopter reconnaissance, and we tried to find out more details about it. It was only on 8th that I ordered 2 battalions to join Brigadier Devinder Singh. I had given him the task of looking after manage the Batalik sector, and they were 111 GR and 12 Jakalai that were to build up there straight away. We had very limited troops at that time. As you are well aware, I think 70 Infantry Brigade had been taken away to build up the counter-insurgency grid in the valley. So there was only
Yes, sir.
114 Infantry Brigade looking after whole of eastern Ladakh. Sechan sector, Sechan Brigade itself required troops to move in, prepare, to be inducted in, trained, and those coming out had to be refitted and cured of various diseases that they had. And of course, the Kargil Brigade had its component. But it was a huge sector. 3 Infantry Division itself, as you see, has a uh, area of responsibility which along the line of control to the AGPL and Eastern Ladakh was just under 800 kilometers, or just under 1,000 kilometers. I haven't measured it, but that's the approximate figure. and therefore there was a paucity of troops at that time. There were large gaps existing in the deployment. I want to state here that from 1948 or 49, since the Karachi Agreement, the gaps which are existing in the deployment had never been held by anybody. And these areas were only patrolled and surveillance was maintained to whatever extent possible. For example, from the Karbol Gully down up to uh, where 16 Grenadiers was, that is a 40 kilometers of Mashko Valley. From there is a gap of 16 kilometers to the next position, Bimba Delsi. And thereafter, there is another 15 kilometers, 10 to 15 kilometers gap to Kaksar. So, like that, if you look at it, there were very vast gaps. And it was thin on the ground. So, having discerned this intrusion and having carried out, we were generally aware that this intrusion has taken place over a vast area. By 11th, 12th, we knew that things were happening in the Dara sector as well, and some amount of movement has taken place. The intrusion has taken place even in Mashko. Pinpointing of each position was not done at that time, but steadily we built up the intelligence picture. At the same time, I think the Corps headquarters decided, and parts of 8 mountain divisions started coming in, and that's how the war was fought thereafter. Immediately, there were few things done. One was that the containment action had to be there so that we didn't allow the enemy to move forward any further, either to dominate the National Highway 1 Alpha and also onto the Indus Valley on the other side, also to dominate the National Highway 1 Alpha anywhere. So we straight away ensured the protection of the National Highway 1 Alpha by occupying the Zujila Pass as well as the ridge line between Mashko Valley and National 1 Alpha, so that no further intrusion could take place. At places, our troops were able to push back um, the enemy. The nearest position that was there to the national highway was Toroling, which was about 5.5 kilometers from there. And that was the first target to be removed because that was the first intrusion to be removed. Simple is because it could dominate the highway by observation and also may be able to direct some artillery fire. So, under Brigadier Rawal, we launched the operation as early as 17th or 18th of May. 18 Grenadiers was the unit which had come in first. They had acclimatized at Baltal and they had acclimatized at Kumri, and they had some time available at Dras itself. And therefore, it was thought prudent that it is enough adequate time given to acclimatization. And maybe the enemy is not yet prepared, and therefore, let's go. Let's try and get hold of this position. However, the attack did not succeed because there was paucity of artillery support. And rightly, we had to prepare and try and reduce the enemy, weaken the enemy so that our troops could go and capture that position. Similarly, actions had been taken in 102 Brigade to contain the enemy from overflowing across the line of control. They had come and occupied certain positions as high as 5950 west of the south of the Turtuk sector, and we had to prevent. We had also to look after the eastern Ladakh, where Chinese made occasional forays, small intrusions, and went back again. So it was a vast area of responsibility with a vast scope of work. And Sechan had still continued to be managed because uh, things had to be provided to troops to sustain them there. That is what it was. And after that, 79 Brigade came in. They were deployed in Mashko Valley. Troops were built up slowly. As stated by many, in the mountains, there is a requirement of manpower to be built up to be able to carry out attacks
Yeah.
successfully. And therefore, an average ratio of 10 is to 1 at the point of impact, that is, at the target area or the objective, it has to be ensured so that success is there. Preponderance of fire support has to be there to suppress the enemy. The terrain itself is the most rugged, I think, comparable to what Station has got. And so it was an uphill task. But I think everybody in the division, everybody down up to any level, were determined that this enemy has to be defeated. And I said so to the press as early as 17th or 18th, then BBC and all kinds of people were present, world media. And I said, this enemy has to be defeated and we'll make sure it is done. Yes, the intrusion took place in 3 and 20 Dev sector, in the Kargil sector especially. And they tried to come and occupy some positions in the Station Brigade, also 102 Brigade, where ultimately we captured everything on the ridge line in both the brigade sectors. The entire line of control was with us by 26th of July. How the battles were fought basically has been given in detail by the chief, General Malik, in his book, as well as by General Mohinder Puri, which were published early.
Yeah. I'm familiar with both of them.
Yeah,
And in fact, General Mohinder Puri has also been talking on this particular program,
yeah,
where we are hoping to take all these interviews and then put it together as Kargil 25 as a book form also, so
sure.
that we can actually draw the lessons of what actually happened at that time, sir.
Yep,
So basically, sir, you were saying that you had three, 121 was under you, 114 was looking after Eastern Ladakh,
yep,
and 102 was looking after Siachen.
yep.
Did you have any other? You had no other formations under you, sir, or was and 70 Brigade had been delinked and gone off, and it had come back.
Yeah,
Only the headquarters was there.
70 Brigade headquarters had come into a place called Khalsi in November,
Yeah,
but there are no troops. Whatever troops were there in Khalsi were basically battalions which were de-inducted from Sechin Glacier after a tenure,
right.
or were preparing to go into the Sechin Glacier. So it was a transition point where people came and went. And the story of 3 Infantry Division didn't end with the intrusion. It basically carried on in terms of how we routed the enemy in the Batalic sector, which was declared by the Corps Commander, Lieutenant General Krishpal, and how we took the entire ridgeline in 102 Brigade sector, that is the Turtuks, where Hanifuddin, Captain Hanifuddin, died of 11 Rajrif, and he died
Yeah,
very brave in a very brave action. That subsector was named after him, subsector Hanif. Plus, we also, in southern glacier, there's a suspected position of the enemy at 0.5770. Imagine the height. It was glaciated totally. There were overhangs, and there were 5 men, 2 from Hawes and 3 from 27 Rajput, went up those overhangs and captured that position, killing 14 or 15 of the enemy. So these were brave actions which really did not find any mention, uh, which because the media could not go beyond Kargil. Um, like um, 70 Brigade was operating from Ganasok, and with the BMs in a separate axis, 2 different areas. It was 2 days marching time to reach there. And similarly, in 102 Brigade, to get from Turtuk upwards to the position where they were fighting was another 2 days marching time. So therefore, these battles were really not understood by most. And really, what was happening in Eastern Ladakh, where Dipsang, there were patrols moving and other things happening with very limited amount of troops. How we steadily built up the forces, 1 battalion at a time came, and there were 9 to 10 battalions which ultimately came up, and we built built up the ammunition, we built up the supply chain, we built up the evacuation means, and thereafter we launched an operation trying to encircle the enemy from both sides instead of bashing ourselves up the slopes. We went along the Batalik Nala and on the western flank, and on the eastern flank from we had captured point 5203, and there were four battalions launched from that side and two from the other side. And by the time the ceasefire came, Batalik was all clear. Similarly, 102 Brigade had been operating, and they had captured entirely everything, starting from the top, the Ladakh range, top of that, downwards towards Tutuk. So there was a tremendous amount of success which was achieved overall.
So yeah, I came with you to, I had accompanied you to Ganasok on two occasions, and we had also gone what was that place where the other attack was between Ganasok and Hanif sector, sir.
Yeah,
Chorbatla.
yeah,
In
bilkul.
fact, it was the day you were going to launch that. I've got that on film. I've used that in NDA also, where you're talking to that young officer telling him to climb up from the hill and all that.
Yes, yes.
Now, it's interesting you should say this about Badalik because unfortunately, in the aftermath of the war, today you have a memorial over there which is almost sort of it's an 8-day memorial and it's not even talking about what happened in Batalik and stuff like that. And yet the actions fought in Batalik, in your own words, were incredible. I mean, and Batalik as well as 102, sir, where KH's battalion, Manipuri leading Rajput troops up that slope.
Exactly,
Absolutely incredible.
exactly.
And yet these stories have not really been told. Uh,
Well,
partly because of,
yeah, yeah, but carry on.
sorry, sir.
Yeah, carry on.
Partly because I think what happened towards the end of the war, or after the ceasefire was declared and all the stuff that happened subsequently, to put it in very blunt terms, I mean, it became 8 division good division and 3 division bad division because of the intrusions which had happened. That's the way it was eventually portrayed in some and in all the subsequent things. And I think Batalik in particular was and the Tortuk sector were the two major ones which got completely overshadowed because of that. Sir. Not just because the press couldn't get there, but these stories never really got to. I mean, apart we some of us have tried to tell them, but it's been limited. So
Yeah, firstly, about the war memorial. Um, Immediately after the war, 14 Corps headquarters got raised. And in Leh, I had started construction of a war memorial for 3 Infantry Division. But then
okay,
we got shifted to Karu, and
yeah,
thereafter I had done my tenure and over 2 years, and so I was posted out. So that work remained incomplete, and I don't know whether 14 Corps has been able to make a memorial in Leh, which was at a very prominent location. So I'm not aware of that. So that is one aspect.
so
Yes, war memorial should have been constructed for 3 Infantry Division as well, and mention should have been given of all these things that you state. Second is that the media itself was overbearing, and they were interested in the intelligence failure instead of seeing how the success has to be achieved in the war. And we were totally dedicated. I was there with Brigadier Devinder Singh and Brigadier Surinder Singh uh, nearly every day. And every week I was across on the other side to 102 Brigade, planning and exercising control on things. For example, nobody knows that 11 Rajrif, where Captain Hanif died, thereafter 13 Kumaon, thereafter 9 Mahar, and they fought gallant actions there in the 102 Brigade sector. And how there was in 5770.5770, once it was captured, the body of a captain of the Pakistan Army was requested by somebody, his grandfather from England, and we recovered that. And there was a local ceasefire order for this, and we recovered the
yes, sir.
body and brought it down. So we behaved with total equanimity, and our focus was that this enemy has to be defeated. All kinds of things were happening, uh, and people were mentioning, but fault finding, etc. But our aim was steady, that we must defeat this enemy, which we did achieve, and with great honor. It didn't find mention, just too bad. It's just too bad.
You mentioned two officers by name right now, the two brigade commanders, Brigadier Surinder and Brigadier Devinder.
Yeah.
And, both of them have had to fight decade-long battles, sort of whatever. I think in Brigadier Surinder's case, the thing is still going on. Case of Brigadier Devinder, it took the army tribunal and God knows how many courts and all kinds of nonsense to give him his due and to give you your due because it's all interrelated. These were two of your strike brigades. I mean, they were now. I mean that. What are your comments about what actually happened with Brigadier Surinder? So subsequent kind of, well, literally having court-martialed him or whatever.
Well, no. It was basically, I have nothing to do with that. He was posted out by army quarters.
Hmm.
I, as a GOC, have no control on who's being posted in or posted out.
No, no, I'm
He-
asking you about your particular view about his performance. I mean, everybody knows what that is, but not beyond in
But
your control. But
yeah,
as a GOC and immediate superior officer reporting on him,
yeah.
what
Well,
were your views of
no,
the two officers in?
it was quite satisfactory. I can say that. And
Yes,
we sent him off gracefully once he was posted out. That's all what we did. I cannot comment any further because that's all confidential information. Brigadier Davinder Singh did well in the war, and so
he
did
did very
Brigadier. The story will be incomplete without Brigadier Katoch coming into the picture,
well. Yeah,
102 Brigade Commander.
yes.
And you might
Prakash
like to
Katoch,
also, yeah, talk to the Sea Artillery, Brigadier Nair, where if you can find him, because
oh
artillery
yeah, I
played a
remember.
major role. And mind you, you might have seen the deployment at Da, one behind the other. The Bofors one behind. There's no deployment areas. It was all
I remember that they were lined
improvised.
up one behind.
Yeah,
In fact, I spent a lot of time with him because he used to joke with me. He used to say, "I'm Brigati," and every time there would be a shell falling nearby, his windows would break and my car would be okay.
yeah.
Now, tell us a little bit more, sir, in terms of how did 3 Day actually once, let's get into the macro details of what actually happened. Firstly, once 8 Mountain Division moved in, which are the areas of responsibility? I mean, up till Dras, it was handed over to them. Batalik remained with you. Batalik actually was not being held earlier, right? You
Yeah,
pushed 70 Brigade into that.
yeah.
A bit more on
See,
that, sir.
yes. So on 1st of June, two of their brigades had already been built up, and the third one was on the way, 192 Brigade. So 8 Mountain Division was given the responsibility from Dras westwards right up to uh, Mashko and up to the interformation boundary. The rest of the area still remained with us. Kaksar subsector, which is quite a large one, Kargil subsector, and Batalik subsector, 102 area, which is Turtuk and south of it, and of course the southern glacier where the actions were fought. And 114 Brigade remained the same. It is it was a necessity to build up more troops because to be able to eliminate the enemy from the intrusion, that strength had to be built up. And it was good command and control that had to be exercised. So area was divided, and basically 8 Mountain Division was given that small area, and rest of it was still with us. We continue to perform our defensive role in all these sectors. That is Kaksar, Batalik, Kargil, 102 Brigade, the Turtuk sector, and Eastern Ladakh. One had to be very careful because with the depletion of troops from Eastern Ladakh, Chinese could walk in, and we were very thin on the ground. But yes, we maintained positions which were there, which were held, and continued till the end of the war, till we sent back our troops into that area to beef up the strength there. We had to manage Sechin because what happens is that when a unit comes down, it requires 1 month of refit, of treatment. People are suffering from what is today called as post stress traumatic disorder. Troops are disoriented. They haven't had a bath for 3 months, so therefore they require cleaning up. There are a lot of diseases which come in. So that was done, had to be done. A battalion going up had to be trained in snow warfare on mountain techniques, and therefore it required 1 month of training there. So, like that, there was a very delicate balance that had to be maintained, how many troops to be where. And overtures by Pakistan in Sechin Glacier, by Chinese on the eastern Ladakh area, they had to be washed and taken care of. But we did it. We did it very well.
So, yeah.
And ultimately, um, basically, our aim was to achieve victory, and which we did very well.
Tell me a little bit more about the Kaksar sectors. That was Brigadier Joke. He was there, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
That was also
After
your area of responsibility.
after Brigadier Surinder Singh left, another Joe came in, and that was given a lower priority because the positions of I mean, where the enemy had come up to were about 10 kilometers inside, and therefore they were not a threat to anybody. And we had given one battalion to him, plus the BSF troops were holding out, were containing the enemy. And Kaksar had 4 Jat available. If you remember, Captain Abol Kalia was from Fort Jat. The
Yeah.
person
Yes.
who was initially, you know, when they ran out of ammunition, they were captured by the Pakistanis, were on a patrol. And so that was it. And since there was very limited artillery support in the area, we gave it a second priority. Okay? I said, okay, let's capture the other area. This will be a simple affair after that to bring back.
Yes,
So
sir.
you had to concentrate troops at the point of attack. It was not possible to do it everywhere. That is why we give it
Now,
a lower priority compared to the other sectors.
a battalic, sir, was perhaps the most difficult sector in the entire war in many ways. If you look at the communications, I remember flying with you, landing at Dad and going into the Yaldor Nala. The rotors were barely missing the sides. Then we would
Yes.
go and land at Janasok.
Yes.
Uh, yeah, the eventually you had pushed in, I think, 11 battalions into the sector. So if I'm not mistaken, some of them came piecemeal, some of them came ad hoc. It was gradually built up as the threat kept getting obvious as to exactly what was happening out there.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit your perspective of how the battles in Batalik panned out.
Well, the battles in Batalik got panned out very well once we were absolutely ready. And we had decimated the enemy to an extent because of constant artillery fire, because of our probing attacks. They were taking on casualties. Their intercepts basically started saying that we are unnecessarily being made shaheeds. We have no ammunition, we have no food. Ammunition has been destroyed by artillery shelling. There are people who are wounded here who will die if not evacuated. These kind of intercepts started coming. So then we knew that, yes, it was possible now to defeat this enemy totally. So then I sent Brigadier Devinder Singh. We made a plan, and the army commander, General Khanna, and the corps commander, General Krishan Pal, came to Da, and we presented the plan. I said, sir, we're going to encircle this enemy, and we will give you as many prisoners of war as possible if we are successful. So I sent Brigadier Devinder Singh along the uh, western edge of this with 17 Royal Rifles and with one Bihar to take action. Prior to this, we had ensured that 2 nights we carried out destructive shoot with artillery. That means all fire units are firing onto one objective, that is Jubar Ridge, to soften up the objective so that troops can just walk in. If you remember, Major Sarvanan of One Bihar had died in a very gallant action earlier. So, and any frontal assault was not possible. More casualties would have been suffered. So, to minimize and to casualties and to achieve success, Brigadier Devinder Singh, I said 2 battalions, make sure that they get onto the objectives. On the eastern side, we used 111 GR less, two companies. They were still in contact with Kukartham. we used 22 Grenadiers, which was a fresh battalion. And we used 12 Jackal with two companies because they were holding on and had captured 5203 along with 5 paras. And we used Ladakh scouts. So this staggered attack by a day. Devinder Singh achieving success on the western flank, and well, it was Deputy GOC. Somebody had to, coordinate the efforts of these 4 battalions. So I sent Brigadier Dugal there, and I myself moved between Batalik and I moved to Danasau. So it was very easy for us to control it, and decisions were given on the spot. And mind you, by 6th or 7th of May of July, everything was clear, and the ceasefire came on 10th of July. At that time, then Krishan Pal and the military secretary, General Inda Verma, came, and there was a huge crowd at the Kargil helipad. There was a lot of celebration that we have done it. Then the chief came with the air chief together, and they also were explained as to how we achieved this. And I think they were generally that we had won the war. And after the ceasefire, we went and secured the entire line of control. In fact, 1 or 2 places we tried to establish firm bases in case we have to ever make a counter intrusion, to make
Yes,
sure that,
sir.
in case we are allowed to go across by the political leadership across the line of control. We did that. We were ready. And at the end of the thing, after that, we had about 7 or 8 battalions, which we could have reorganized and taken the war across the LOC if it was permitted by the political leadership. But good enough, as decided earlier, that we will fight this and stay on one side of the line of control, which we did. And we ensured success. That was the idea. Mind you, everybody, we had, for example, to carry ammunition, to carry rations, to carry anything, to evacuate casualties, we had limited resources. So I went to the column of Ladakh uh, and I asked them, I said, look, let's get some effort from you. So each family would take out their hat, put their names inside. Whoever name came out, they came as volunteers as potters
I
to
know, sir. I
350
remember.
division, and they carried mortar bong and what have you, right up to the troops, which is very creditable. And
Oh,
the
fantastic. I remember.
entire population, I think the country came together in an effort to support us.
That's true, sir.
Yeah.
Was there any actual activity by the Chinese, sir, during this period? Did they make any threatening gestures? Did they do any kind of aggressive patrolling during this period?
Yeah, well, minor ones, very minor ones across Demchok. They came in strength on horses once, and up to the Tsang Plains. They made a small road. Uh, Not really an encroachment, but these kind of activities were there, and there was no threatening. They didn't threaten our defense posture at all. But yes, it would have been possible. One had to take cautions to make sure that it doesn't happen when we are concentrating on the other side against the Pakistanis. So it had to be managed both ways.
You mentioned that you were getting intercepts through once the fighting had begun, and that you had a pretty good idea about what they were saying about what their casualties were, etc., on the other side, especially opposite Batalik. How good was our once the? I mean, how good is our or was during the Kargil operations, or our interceptions of their messages, etc. How much of an idea did you have about exactly what you were facing? Because there was also this whole period of uncertainty with the appreciation of the enemy's strength, etc. Obviously, it took time to figure it out, but how much intelligence was actually coming to you, or was it all coming to Delhi and being interpreted by them? What was happening?
No, you see, locally we had interception available, and initially the Pakistani troops were basically using 3 4 languages: Sheena, Pashto,
Hmm.
Balti, little bit of Urdu. And so therefore we had to find interpreters. And locally we found them from Batalik as well as from Batalik village, plus as well as from Kargil town. And they volunteered. Second thing is that, initially there was a lot of deception. At one point, they said Osama bin Laden Bhai will be sending reinforcements. Now, there was no such thing. During the entire Kargil war, not a single militant was seen or encountered. It was entirely the
Mm.
Pakistan army which had intruded. No militant ever learns how to fight an operation of war. They don't occupy defenses to fight. They believe in hit and run tactics, ambushes, those kind of things. So we were very certain. And basically, once we got hold of dead bodies, then we found out that yes, these are soldiers. There were documents available, paybooks available, their accoutrements which they were wearing indicated that they were soldiers from the Pakistan army. And largely, uh, there were four sectors in which four infantry battalions or NLI battalions were used, plus the holding forces which were there. So approximately seven, which were the holding, three battalions holding the ridge lines as firm bases, and four that were sent in. Mind you, one has to assess how do you make out how many troops had come in. It is basically from troops in contact, from the type of weapons they are firing, from the area that they're holding. For example, there was a little doubt about how many troops had come into Batalik sector, how many troops were holding 102 had come onto the ridge line 102. There were four ridge lines which were there, and five Northern Light Infantry was the battalion, which was basically moved inside to occupy positions. Now, each battalion has four companies, out of which some troops are left for administration, for supply. They were as fighting porters or whatever. So, therefore, I expected that, okay, Jubar, Kukarthang, uh, Khalubar, 5203, these lines would have a company each. Maybe the strength would be 80 to 100 on each of these, and they were deployed in smaller lots. So, I expected that in that area there would be about 400, 450 troops. Okay, there would be sub resupply columns or whatever. And that basically culminated at a place called Muntodalo, which is in the depression, basically in the valley. And we knew. So that is what it was. So an assessment had to be done. People may say, okay, there that many troops were there, whatever it is. But that is what I felt. So ultimately, it was basically a plan that we succeeded in with our pincer that we launched. It was only the ceasefire interfered, otherwise, we would have produced a lot of casualties. We had put up
Well,
observation posts
so
in two or three places to watch this withdrawal taking place. So many people are going with bandages, with being carried back. We observed that. We allowed them to go. Yeah.
but in this appreciation of numbers, there was now, if I remember correctly, I think Brigadier Devendra was saying that there were 600. You said 450. But the corps commander at that time was of the opinion they're not more than. He himself has admitted it in a couple of television interviews that only after Tololing did he actually realize that they were not hit and run guerrillas but actually regular army. But why this? How do you explain this kind of disparity? कहाँ 45, कहाँ आप 450 बोल रहे हो? देवेंद्र Brigadier Devendra saying 600. What
Well,
was the
all I can say is the corps commander initially was not aware of the actualities of the on the ground, and he made this statement very early in May, in which he said there are okay that many militants will be able to push them out very quickly.
yeah,
And that is followed
okay?
up by Mr. George Fernandez, who picked up the same words and will knock them out in 24 to 48 hours. I mean, basically, these were
That
statements which were made. Uh, as far as difference between me and Devinder, it's his perception. I cannot comment on that. I've explained why I perceived that this was the thing. And
no, that's okay.
one has to really
There's still
realize, one has to be realize, okay, I said 450, fine. And those 450 had to be thrown out. That's it. He said 650, 650 had to be thrown out. Okay, that's his perception.
no, no,
So,
that's all right. With 650, 450, it still makes some sort of sense. But 45 is an absolute extreme on the
I
other
know
end.
that
No?
was initially because the picture was incomplete, perhaps with the core headquarters. at that time.
Yes.
We were aware of it. We realized that, okay, that many positions have been occupied now. Small. And mind you, what position? They had no defense stores. They had no capability of making any bunkers. People talk of bunkers being made. They're only able to prepare fire positions, use of stones and rocks called sangars.
Sangar type.
That's all.
Uh,
Nothing. Yeah, there's nothing they had. So any artillery shell falling in that area, and I made sure, told the CRT, I said one shell at a time with one gun targeting one objective. Okay, so you are accurate. Instead of firing six guns on a point, which are waste of ammunition. So that really hurt them, weakened them to a degree. And we prepared the battlefields in such a manner that we had to achieve success ultimately.
were there any
Yes.
Air Force sorties used in battalion
Oh, yes.
apart from?
Yes. 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 I know. The AOCNC Western Command came, and Air Marshal Air Marshal Patni came, and then Air Marshal Narayan Menon came many times, and we gave them objectives. Despite the
Right.
fact that we lost two aircraft, we said, okay, here it is. So, like for example, a feature called Tharu, which is on depth to Kukarthang. So I gave them. I said, look, in the area of Kukarthang, my troops are very close to each other, in contact with the enemy. I don't want my troops to suffer. Okay, go and hit Tharu. So where it was a partially snow-covered feature, after the strike, a precision strike, it was all charred. You could see the difference.
Hmm.
So like that, we gave them objectives, and initially they were not allowed to uh, come in. So, but once they were used, they did whatever we asked them to.
Well, 3 Division continues to be the division which is now, at least now it's focused against China. Earlier you were kind of hybrid here, there, everywhere. It was quite a scattered division. In fact, if I may use the term, it was known as the bastard division because they didn't know whose father they were up against. It was quite a thing. A little bit more on the 102 operations. The apart from 5770, which was, I mean, which was absolutely incredible. I mean, I don't that particular operation is almost mind-boggling. But which were the other uh, operations fought in that area?
Okay, one was that having detected the intrusion, now it is a question. Okay, where can the enemy extend himself? A, he should not be allowed to come forward. So containment was first thing to be
The
done.
key.
Second is Chor Batla, and east of it there is a ridge line which has a feature called Topko Chand, and there is
Hmm.
a height called 6020. That is the highest point. We sent in one Ladakh scout soldier at a time. When three had reached there, they killed 7 Pakistanis who were trying to climb up that escarpment to come and occupy that area.
Yeah.
3 of the dead bodies were recovered by us. There was a frenzy, bring the bodies down, how to bring those bodies down, from that height. But we did bring them down ultimately, and you know, the Pakistani soldiers, and we treated them with honor. Then we took them down to Srinagar. Basically, whatever happened after that, I don't. But so there, Sonam Wanchuk, that major from Ladakh Scouts,
Yeah.
was a brave man. I tell you, the guy,
Incredible.
and we could lift not more than one troop at a time in that cheetah helicopter. So one helicopter built up 7 troops. That's all. And steadily, then 14 Sek came. And 14 Sek with KK Sinha as the CEO.
KK
I said,
Sinha was there.
go and occupy
Yeah.
that Topko Chand feature. And he, 6,020 feet. I mean, Six did a great job there. And
You'd also dropped KK Sinha there before his battalion moved in and said, spend the night here, figure it out.
yeah,
KK.
that's right. In fact, I had brought in the advance party as well earlier till he came.
Yeah.
So
When I
that was
was
the paucity of troops. Whatever we could milk out from rest of the division sector, He said, "Come along, let's take care of this enemy first."
Yeah. The what else about the Kargil War that actually in the 25th year? What are the things that you feel should be highlighted at this point of time? Because we've now a lot of time has passed. So what the lessons that need to be learned? What else would you actually put on the table if you wanted to address the future generations which are now in positions of responsibilities?
Okay, see, any commander, like as soon as I took over the division, my first action was to get an operational briefing to understand what my tasks are, my role is. Second is to get into the intelligence picture. A commander will be blind totally. He will not be able to plan, carry out threat assessments unless he is up to the intelligence picture. Second most important thing I did was, and I continuously continue to do it, was speak to the intelligence officers. I also called the IB guy in Leh, and they are secretive. They report up their own channel. They don't want to directly interact with the army in that way. So, second important thing is that intelligence at the local level has to be very vigorous, if possible. Second is that there has to be a proper assessment, analysis of the intelligence that is available at whatever level, at national level, at army headquarters level. It has to be analyzed. And the intelligence summaries do not have to be routine. They have to be properly figured out after this analysis has been carried out. Third is that a reassessment has to be done as to where the threat exists. In the war games, in Corps headquarters, I have to say that, look, sir, into the Corps headquarters, all the officers present, that we still have Chinese as the main enemy. So please beware of that. Despite the fact they'd taken away in 97, they'd pulled out 70 Brigade, which basically was looking after the Tangse area and beyond. So it's a second thing. Third is that the training has to be more vigorous. I mean, basic tactics cannot be forgotten. We suffered some casualties because of basic things not being followed. Uh, Fire and movement, patrolling with stealth, those kind of things. Very elementary stuff. So therefore, in our training, we have to be very realistic and appreciate what is to be done. Third is that every arm and service has got a very big role to perform. I must say that right from the engineers to the artillery to the medical teams, right to the supply chain system that was operating, right up to the ordnance. I mean, battalions, as you know, which were basically coming out from Sechan, were depleted of their weapons, and their strength had reduced considerably because people haven't gone on leave for so many months. So all that mattered, and therefore adequate number of troops should be there, besides the relief and replacement of troops. So whatever it is, and this assessment really has to be a continuous process. Threats change, perceptions change, and one should be open to communication at every level. I was very happy to see that the MO directorate spoke to me nearly every day, and we gave them assurances. I was very happy to see that the chief, he risked his life and he came over so many times and did what gave us whatever we requested. There was some new equipment which came in, which was basically utilized. It didn't come in fast enough. I mean, later on, of course, they realized that yes, as early as September '98, I had projected the requirements of Northern Command as to what I had come down to Army headquarters at the best of the chief, and I'd give a presentation to everybody present there, the whole hierarchy, and it was well understood. So, but things cannot be delayed. The procurement of equipment, etc. It should be done, and like in Sechan area, the line communication was the primary means of communication. The lines got shattered by avalanches because of weather, because of artillery shelling, of mortar shelling. And if you lost contact with a post and you tried to figure out what has happened there, then patrols were sent and people fell in crevices or died, because of avalanche. So you're unnecessarily
Mm.
losing men. And therefore, one has to appreciate that, okay, so, but it was understood and we got very good radio equipment with secrecy devices, frequency hopping sets, which were given to us within 3 months after trials. So these things have to be realized. And like, for instance, with 70 Brigade, I was not able to communicate with Governor Saab because we had only line communication. VHF communications had no secrecy devices. They could be heard in Lahore or in Rawalpindi.
Anyway,
So,
yeah.
yeah, so and VHF communication because of line of sight problems, HF communication because of this secrecy devices. So we had to build up the whole thing. There were miles and miles of cable that had to be laid. And hats off to the signal guys who developed this communication system. It took maybe 15 days to really put it in place. And then there were breakages which would occur. So all that had to be surmounted, which we did. I mean, it was a part of the game.
You already said it, but I still want to put it down as a question again. It was basically a young man's war. I mean, I remember what I saw with you and with others. It was the young officers really performed almost superhuman feats, and very. But there were also cases where there were a couple of officers who had pointed out with very, even by what you are saying, it stands that initially we didn't have the equipment to be able to launch certain kind of attacks, etc. Some of them were even court-martialed, I think, later. What are your views on that? As the GOC, you are fully aware of what the situation on the ground is. Yet, if the system has to crack down on them. They are also being, they're doing what they have to do. I have to tell you that my men are not fit. They're not up to it. And some of them had come from Siachen. They were actually unfit. They'd be static. So, a comment there, sir, because there have been a couple of people who've been, there have been a lot of articles on this recently as well.
Yeah, well, since the 25th anniversary of the Kargil war is coming about, there will be a lot of articles which will be written. The thing
Hmm.
is that in in the Kargil war, the only operation that was required to be done was to attack the enemy and eliminate him. Okay, some troops were even withdrawn from the area of who had come down from the Sechin Glacier, and they were
Yeah.
acclimatized troops, and they were utilized. So, I mean, that had to be done because there was a paucity of troops, and you required fresh troops out there. Some people had been fighting there in contact with the enemy for the last month and a half.
True.
That wears you down. So, therefore, where to
Of
get the
course it.
fresh troops? They're coming
Yeah.
in, okay, 17, okay, one Bihar came in, okay, then 22 Grenadiers came in, okay, 17 Garhwal Rifles came in. They were utilized. So, within our resources, we collected Ladakh Scouts, a whole wing. Within our resources, we brought, okay, we'll get a company from 5 paras, okay. So, we had to utilize, and everybody had to go into attack. There's no other operation of war that was to be practiced there. And
Yeah.
everybody was geared up to it. That's all.
Well,
An odd guy, I mean, if he says, okay, my troops are tired, whatever, it doesn't matter. I mean, he should have, whoever it was, it has to be realized that attack is basically the operation of war that is to be done. So
we
this is a
still
very, very minor point. It never
I
would
agree
have
with
any
you that it was just raising it because it has been featuring in the last few days. Also, there have been a couple of articles. Uh,
yeah,
the was sixth division supposed to be your reserve division for three dips for in the event of any major operation, which was being commanded by General Ashok Huku. Six
yeah.
was it officially the reserve division for three dips?
Well, the planning of army headquarters had built in additional troops, and 6th Day was one of them, if required. And so, therefore, It was there, available. Not
So some of the battalions.
in the in the area of Kargil or anywhere.
Uh-huh.
It was in the rear.
I
That's
see.
it. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
So I remember when I came down after the war, I met General Huku at Solamar. He had been my dad's BM in 70 Brigade in Kiari
Yeah.
way back in 1981. So it was good to see him. But in fact, we even with General Mohindapuri once been interacting quite a lot. And I had the privilege of being with you. In fact, I still have on film your immediate debrief of what happened in the three division sector on video, and we used it in the film. In fact, that film was later made and shown to Bill Clinton also.
Oh,
And when he visited, what we did was we gave that footage when I came down. So that footage was given to a lot of channels, the BBC, CNN, everyone. And I only had one. The army used to say, "हमारे पास कुछ नहीं है, कुणाल के पास जाके ले लो." They'd come to me. I'd say, "I'll give it to you on one condition that you don't use words like India occupied Kashmir and stuff like that." So it worked very well. Had the army done it, it would have been everybody would have yelled censorship.
yeah.
And another thing, since we have you today, and in the subsequent this thing, there was a lot of talk about the deputy GOC of 3 Division having commanded troops in battalions. Now, that's the question which I want to ask you because that has come up in one of the. Later on, they said that part of the operational control was with Brigadier Ashok Dugal. He was your deputy. What are your comments on that?
Well, we were all employed in this attack. It was a 6 battalion operation, and I stated earlier, Brigadier Devinder Singh was on the western flank. There was no possibility of him looking at the eastern flank, which is separated by nearly 20 kilometers. So, therefore, to coordinate the efforts of and prepare the attack on the eastern side, Brigadier Dugal was sent there, and I was there with him nearly every day, getting the troops ready.
Eastern side being the
Yeah, Ganasop,
the
in Ganasop.
Kanas.
Yeah, he was
Okay.
there. And mind you, the area where the helipad was, that was shelled one day, and we were sitting outside his this thing ops room, and we had splinters going over our heads. So I was
Yeah.
telling him, I said, look, Ashok, one correction is the firing will be on us. Just add 100 and write 100. But that was part of the game. But
Yeah.
yes, I had to send somebody to, because I had sent off Devinder, because I thought that the western flank, if it is successful, we are going to be at the opposite Shangruti feature. There was a feature 5385 or something, the height. If I capture that, then all the four fingers running in front, the enemy would run away from there, because once we have
Hmm.
come to the rear area. So that was the idea. It was very important for him to succeed that side. So I sent him. I said, okay, you go and do that. And this side, to get those 4 battalions ready for the attack. One day, there was a stagger of 1 or 2 days between the two, western flank and eastern flank and western flank. That's why I sent Dougal there. I said somebody has to be there to coordinate. I
Hmm.
was myself there with him every day. So no sweat.
Well, you got in the
There is no
subsequent.
controversy on that. There is no controversy. He was the man available, and he was up to it. So we did it. Yeah.
Now the other thing was that I think out of the 3 Division got when the battle honors and the theater awards were being worked out. I think 3 Division got the bulk of the cake there, and especially the formations in Batalik also. So that in itself, in many ways, speaks volumes for the performance of the division, sir. It's not a 8 division versus 3 division thing. It's just the subsequent when the more dispassionate analysis was done. I think General Nambiar did that or something. So when that happened, in fact, I think you got most of the battle honors and the theater awards. I think it was,
No, I'm sorry. I was out of the country, so I'm not aware of these awards. Really, honestly, I
well,
have no idea. But I'm very
you did.
happy. I'm very happy that my battalions really got recognized. And even though in retrospect, but it's great. It feels nice.
Before we wind up, a quick word about your immediate stuff. You had Colonel Avtar as your GS, you had your G3, you was Mehta, I think he was also from the Rajputs.
G1 Ops. He was
And
G1. G1 Ops.
quick word about them, sir, about their performance.
Well, they gave me adequate amount of support that is required by GOC. And in fact, Avtar made out a very nice operation order, I remember. And except for a few corrections here and there, he uh, did that. Coordinated
Hmm.
lots of effort while I was away, wasting the brigades. So it was okay. Very satisfactory performance by all of them.
Well, thank you very much, sir. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
All the best. Thank you very much, Kunal, and what a privilege it has been talking to you.
No, it's been my pleasure, sir. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Bye bye.
God bless.